happy Wednesday night. I'm Texas Homer. I'm filling in for LC. This is Wednesday Night Live. We have Eric Nalin. We have Drew Kelson. And we're going to talk about our top takeaways for spring ball now that it's over after an interesting day at the old On3 office. All right, guys. I'm sure Eric's been a busy guy. All right.
Yeah.
Top 5 takeaways. We'll go off of Eric's article, but also then we can hear your thoughts, Drew, and let's just kind of reflect back on the Longhorns. All right. Eric's first point, Arch protecting the ball, right? What? I thought we had a gunslinger, Eric. What's going on here, man?
Yeah, I think he still is the gunslinger. We know that. I think part of it might be a false read because DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo missed so much of spring. The second Wingo's back in action after weeks off, he's thrown an 80-yard bomb to him. Maybe not having his top deep threats kept him from taking chances down the field. But for the most part, and Sark said this during the Houston Touchdown Club on Monday, which Drew was at. A good time seeing Drew. Hadn't seen him in a minute. He mentioned that Arch's command of the offense is just a lot better than it had been in the past. And he's to the point where he's the guy teaching everybody the offense. So I just think he feels really comfortable with the playbook. But I do think there was a measure of, the fact that his big play guys weren't there for him to try to force more big plays. But he did throw it over the top of Parker Livingstone, quite a few times. We'll get a better read of him in August. But yeah, I think so far so good as far as the gunslinger mentality being, kept sort of in check. You don't want to totally bridle it. You want him to be that wild colt a little bit.
What do you think, Drew?
No, I think just the whole approach that Sark took to this offseason, this spring. I know he didn't have a spring game, but the way that he approached it, I think, really took into account we have new DTs really gunning for it and doing something. I mean, they're trying to fight for positions. They're trying to fight to be on the depth chart next year. We have DNs that we are rotating back. We have Trey Moore at a new position. We had Brad Spence rotating in. We had Jalen Gilbo. We did so much that was so different, as well as you add on the fact that we're trying to gel with a new offensive line. I don't expect to hear many flash or explosive plays, when it comes to Arch, when it comes to really the main purpose of this offseason. The main purpose of spring was to develop. It was to get these guys competing. It was to get these guys learning and to get them. It's not time for chemistry just yet. So you add in the fact that we were missing some primary targets. This was truly a development spring. We can't lose sight of that. But I think between now and the fall, that's really when this thing takes off. That's really when you see who's putting in the work. Everyone's going to be competing for positions in August. It's not just going to be, there's a lot that's going to happen. So everything as it pertains to Arch, I think we've seen enough of Arch to know what he's going to bring to the table. But as far as takeaways go and anything material to really hang our hat on, we must take into account all the other factors around him that are really in flux and really the purpose of what this spring brought.
I think there's some bright side, man. You take away Wingo and Moore, which is not ideal. You want them to get reps, of course. But bright side, it's good to get other guys reps. And maybe Arch had to progress further down the line. Maybe he was throwing it to the third receiver in the progression. Maybe he was learning that the check down is valuable. Those are the kind of things that I think are going to be interesting with Arch and hearing that he's protecting the ball. Eric, do you know of anything, if it was check downy or was the detail there on what protecting the ball meant?
Well, I mean, he was getting the ball out quickly. That's why I think a lot of it, why we heard Emery Winston have such a pronounced spring. We heard him after 90% of the practice. It seemed like I heard something about Emery Winston, catching 6, 7, 8 yarder, moving the sticks or getting a touchdown. He's still using the run backs as well. I wouldn't say it was check downs necessarily. He was using Dalen McCutcheon over the middle, and we heard quite a few times of Parker Livingstone on deep crossers and overs and stuff like that. But I think he was just kind of taking, being smart with the ball. He didn't use his legs at all until pretty much the last scrimmage. And then, you could see that you could tell by just the news we were getting that Sark was trying to go for it. The defense was trying to go for it. So you started hearing about him opening it up a little bit more, throw it over to Wingo, run the ball a lot more with his, Arch running the ball in the red zone a lot more. We're just kind of getting a glimpse of what I think the offense is going to be. And we're just getting a glimpse of how, Arch is really going to be a well-rounded, run the ball, throw it deep quarterback. At the same time, I do feel a lot more confident about him protecting the football.
Cool. And then, of course, the chat is very interested. Where's Catch? We want Catch. OB and IT brothers forever. On Rivals, inside OB. Go on the board. You guys can see Eric's piece on what's occurring there. It was an interesting day, but fan sites will remain fan sites. But shout out to the other people. All right. Running back. I was nervous about this going into the spring kind of period, but I have been somewhat quieted in this regard with Trey Wisner rising to the top, not shockingly. But we should have some actual depth here too, and that's depth not even accounting for Baxter at this current juncture.
Yeah, I think that section kind of says it all. You know, I wrote that last season Texas really had 1.5 running backs, and you know that's not really a slight to Jaden Blue, but if you look at the discrepancy down the stretch, you know, outside of the Clemson playoff game where Wisner had 15 and Blue had 14, Trey Wisner had like 89 carries to his 14 or something ridiculous down the stretch from A&M on to Ohio State. That's insane. And we talk about all the value in rotating people at defensive tackle. Well, think about rotating people at running backs, keeping him fresh, not only fresh, but not banged up, not hurt. You know, every part of Trey Wisner hurt at the end of last season. So what I said is I said really fans should look at Trey Wisner in a similar light to Roschon Johnson for what he did to the team, how he had to shoulder the load. But, you know, the good thing is I don't expect him to have to do that again. You know, Christian Clark's going to be able to carry, 10, 15 carries. Jarrett Gibson's going to be able to get 10, 15 carries. Trey Wisner, 10, 15 carries. So I think it's going to make for a much better group all around. And then from that, some guy's going to emerge as the guy in the fourth quarter. CJ Baxter will come back in August. James Simon, I think I've been saying this. I think he could play this year if he needed to. He's just going to have a whole lot more help. He didn't have nearly as much help. People remember the big plays that Jaden Blue had, against Clemson. But man, if you look at the carry totals down the stretch, it was all going to Trey Wisner. That's not going to happen again.
Blue became this like kind of de facto gadget receiver type running back kind of towards the end. It was all these kind of wheel routes and stuff. But Wisner was the one having to go into battle and make it happen. Drew, what do you think about the running back room? Was that something you were nervous about prior to the spring, or did you always feel good about it? What were your thoughts? You're muted.
I wish I was a ventriloquist. You're muted, Drew.
My bad. I really like Jarrett Gibson. I have since the first time I saw him carry the ball, since I saw him in high school. So it's one of those things where I was even questioning last year. We've seen other freshman running backs have the opportunity to show they can block and show they can do certain things, pass protect, and be involved in game plans around the country. What's missing here. But for what it's worth, I was excited to hear that he's had a good spring. I would expect that from him. He does move differently, both in a very, I won't say evasive way, but just he can be physical without even trying to be. And so there's still some things I know we can see from him if he gets the volume. I just hope he's holding on to the ball at this point. So honestly, with Jarrett Gibson, I felt strong about it. We didn't get a good feel for Christian Clark until this spring. So, listening to Sark on Monday speak through this, I feel solid. And this is nothing taken away. We kind of know what our floor is at this position. Because we have Trey Wisner, and now it's just what can these other guys add on top of that? In addition to, we got Arch. So I feel really good about what we got going.
Yeah, that depth is going to make for a better Trey Wisner.
Yeah, and Christian Clark, I'm super excited about. He's the most Bijan-like of the movers. It's an Arizona requirement. And then we're looking for the future too. If he pulls in Cooper and Edwards. KJ Edwards is a fun back too, man. I like it.
Justin had a really good comp on the board the other day. CJ Spiller for KJ Edwards. I like that quite a bit. We'll see. Running back, last year was the last kind of underperforming year we're going to see a running back for a long time, unless they just have some, massive amount of injuries again, which, they seem to protect themselves really well. They just kind of got caught in a really abnormal circumstance last August.
Go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
I was just going to say one thing that really stands out, and this really goes to Trey Wisner, and I'm hoping what last year brought was Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark, don't be a gadget guy. Be a complete back. Go into this spring, making sure like you're ready to be a complete back. You missed snaps last year, Jarrett, because there are some things that you didn't do yet that made you a complete back. There are reasons why Jaden Blue didn't see as many touches as he would have otherwise liked to see because he wasn't proven to be a complete back. Furthermore, if Trey Wisner just decided, you know what, I'm just a special teams guy and more of a gadget guy and a depth guy, why should I try to be any more than that? If he didn't show up every day being a complete back, he would have missed the opportunity to really maximize himself last year. So when I say Trey Wisner sets the floor for this room, he's a warrior, man. He's a complete back. He's a guy we know we can go with. And then you add in the tools around him. It really feels good what these guys are doing. But the main thing is we need multiple complete backs, not just gadget guys. Because you just never know. You want to be the versatile guy who can come in and do anything that's necessary.
Well, and gadget guys give you away, right? Like when Jaden Blue would come on the field, all right, get ready for the pass or the back out of the backfield. So you want guys who can also work on third downs too. So you're not giving away your hand necessarily just because somebody's on the field. But before we keep going, guys, let's hear from David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Thank you, David.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Evan.
Oh,
We're happy to have you.
Nice
Hello,
to see you
Chad.
guys.
Here's Evan on here as well. Evan, you got any thoughts on the running back room? Do you feel better about it post-spring?
Yeah, listen, Eric, all I'm seeing is Trey Wisner over Jarrett Gibson. That's all I'm saying. No, I agree with a lot of what y'all were saying about I think the 1.5 running backs idea is exactly right last year because Jaden Blue was awesome in the Clemson game. Outside of that, it didn't feel like he was a reliable back and couldn't get him in every game when the matchups didn't work. So I'm much more excited for how it's going to look this year compared to last.
Yeah, me too. All right. Defense. Now we get to talk a little defense.
Oh, yeah.
This is what I also think is going to be the side of the ball once again that's really dynamic for us. And first thing Eric keyed in on was defensive depth and then we had some injuries and all that. But Eric, what do you like about it?
Well, I mean, the depth in spring was most evident at linebacker and in the secondary. Obviously there were some injuries at edge within camp. Zena Umizulu was lost with a hand injury, and Colton Vosick missed camp as well. And then Trey Moore was at linebacker quite a bit, which helps edge linebacker depth. But also, as camp wore on, he started playing edge a lot more. I don't know if that's more of a package thing or if that says a lot about Brad Spence. But they could play at least 5 linebackers, maybe 6. They can play I don't know how many defensive backs. A month or two ago, I wrote they'll play more defensive backs this year than we've ever seen before. I feel even more confident about that. And even the one question mark in the secondary you might have issue with is Starr, but that highlights depth as well because they can use Jelani McDonald there, or even Jalen Gilbo can go back if corner isn't his best spot. So, depth everywhere, and they brought in some more depth at defensive tackle. I'm not concerned about depth, maybe a little concerned about high end talent at D tackle, maybe not as much as others, but I think it's a valid question mark. But they're not going to lack for bodies at defensive tackle after bringing in 2 more. So defensive depth is stellar once again. I think it's going to be the strength of the team once again, but I do anticipate them getting more help from the offense and one of my other 5 points here in a minute.
Drew, what do you think about your linebacker brothers?
It's funny, man. I remember if you reflect back, remember the beginning of last year when we first got Trey Moore, we heard of great things about him in the offseason. First 6 game of the season, non-conference, really. I mean, everybody was looking, just wondering, like, where's Trey Moore? Where are his stats? What's he doing? Is this guy overrated? But then as the year went on and we got into SEC play and we had real bona fide competition, you could rely on him. He got the stats. He played well. He balled out. So I think what we're seeing him go through here, we can't forget the fact that when you talk about depth, him moving a linebacker, even just for a few weeks and making sure that he can expand his own development, like we still have a guy who was he was a killer the second half of the season. Colin, like all these guys really start teeing it up. So I think there's a lot more to expect from Trey Moore. And I just wanted to shout him out just because there's a lot of moving parts here. But the same thing with Gilbo. Gilbo moving the corner just to press some other guys and say, hey, can you earn it? I mean, all these guys are moving around. They're becoming smarter football players. But being a smarter football player and being able to move between positions, that's depth in and of itself. Because when you look at your two deep, you're not looking at a completely different player. You're looking at a highly talented player that's just learned to play a different position. So that's a really cool thing. I think we've specialized in this offseason. We'll see how it unfolds when it all comes together. But across that D-line, Trey Moore and just some of the things that they're doing with Gilbo, I appreciate how we're working through developing depth, not just by numbers, but just making sure guys are cross-training.
Yeah, and we're taking guys that have these abilities too, which I think is important. We're taking guys that you worry about that are potentially like, is he a tweener? But really, they've just turned into these depth pieces for us, like a Jelani, who we'll talk about.
Justice Terry at edge should get a mention too, as far as improving depth. Obviously, one thing I'll talk about and what we didn't learn about this spring, either tomorrow or at some point in the next coming days, will be packages. Justice Terry might get a good look in like a third down package as well. So there's a lot of depth there. Lance Jackson's played both edges, Jack and Buck. Zena Umeozulu can do both as well. So they're deep everywhere. It's an embarrassment of riches and a testament to Sark's roster management.
Colin Simmons is really good too. We've heard consistent reports of that.
Best player on the team right now.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I want to see like a guy like Cade Phillips, like a gunner on special teams. Like he can fly, man. So you have players like that. Cade Phillips is going to press guys because there's just some natural ability there that everybody else didn't necessarily walk out of bed with. This was a bona fide track guy too. So there's players like that. When nobody was looking to hear Cade Phillips' name, no one was looking to hear Brad Spence's name in the spring. When you start hearing guys that you weren't expecting to hear consistently, they have to find ways to get these guys on the field this season because get them greased up and ready to go.
Another name that sticks out to that for me is Warren Roberson, because that's not someone I expect to be a huge contributor coming into the offseason, but he's in every single article Eric's written about cornerback room. He's right there up there with Kobe Black, who Black would probably be the guy I would originally thought would be the CB3, playing that Holmes role, maybe even more than that. But it's another guy. If you play special teams on Steve Sarkisian's team, you're going to get a shot to play whatever your main position is very soon, because Roberson, he wasn't quite a Keaton Crawford level gunner, but he was out there. He was hustling. He was playing all season. So it's going to come up too. And you're highlighting Santana Wilson. I think these cornerbacks are getting really overshadowed by this new class and also Kobe Black. But that's a group I'm excited to see of how they're going to do coming into the season.
I feel the same way with the safeties. Like I feel like I'm really excited to hear all this stuff also for next year, because these are a lot of young athletes. But you're hearing stuff about them now. Like next year's going to, even though we're going to be totally wigged out because it won't be all the names we're used to hearing starting. It's still going to.
2026 defense is going to be insane too. Cade Phillips, what shocked me was starting to hear about his technique so early. That was not what I was anticipating. Length, getting his hands on the ball, that sort of thing. You expect to hear that, make up speed, but good technique. That was a bit of a head turning moment. I need to investigate that further. But man, if he has technique, it is going to be tough to keep him off the field. And Sark mentioned this the other day, and I elaborated in much deeper in an article. He said there's certain guys that are forcing their hands already to get on the field, and other guys are going to do the same in August, and then some in October, and some in January. And so I went down every single freshman and kind of gave a status check of where they are right now after their first spring. 22 of them were on campus, so we've already getting a good first read on them. And there are a number of Grayson Littleton. We should be mentioning Grayson Littleton as somebody that is forcing their hand, whether it be on special teams or we're already playing good at star. I don't think he's going to play a ton this year just because of his lack of experience, but defense is locked in for a long time. Yeah.
And in star, speaking of the nickel position, that is the biggest question mark, right? But also we can just go, if Derek Williams comes back to safety, we can solve that pretty quickly with Jelani. But Grayson Littleton's another thing that's been super consistent in Eric's articles. And then Wardell Mack, too. Was he the one that had the interception in the end zone in the early season?
Yeah, early season.
Yeah. So that's the big question as far as everything. But if you can get Jelani McDonald there, too, man, that's why I'm also excited for next year because these guys are getting real reps. And that's going to be cool. We got a super chat. Brett Nelson asked, are we buying the report of Texas NIL budget for 2025? That was Bowles reporting of around like 35 to 40 million apparently. And then shockingly, everybody in the media sphere picked it up and had an opinion on it. I was like, what?
Yeah, my day got tossed upside down before I got a chance to read that. But I mean, if you did, last year's NIL number and duplicated that this year and then just added in what you expect from the house settlement, you would come to a number in that neighborhood. I don't think it's that cut and dried. And, some of what I know he wrote is false. I'm not sure I want to go too deep into detail on it, but, some of this art stuff is just not accurate that I know for a fact. So, that when you find something that's wrong in an article, you tend to be a bit more skeptical about everything else. The simple math that anybody could do would just say, yeah, last year's number was about 22, I think. And then you add the house settlement number, which would be for football, probably around 15. So that automatically puts you at 37 in between his wheelhouse. So that's believable if Texas goes that route and if they use that much from the collective. But I don't think that number is accurate based on how numbers ended up in the spring. So where else would that 15 go? You're just going to give people raises for no reason?
I know where it comes from.
Yeah, what's that?
I know where it comes from.
Are we all sitting on it?
Our Arch is 30% of that number. You throw in a Red Bull deal, you throw in some.
The official fund. So, but yeah, I mean, basically, Joe explained on the board is like you can get to this number technically, but if you were to get into the details of it, it wouldn't be that clean.
Well, see, they're already basically the outside of the recent portal additions, the roster number was already set, and so where do you just add in the house settlement on top of that? Maybe that would go towards next year, and then you'd have an entirely different number. Let's say 30 or something. I don't know what it would be. But yeah, some of that'll go to other sports. Most of it will go to football because that's what brings in the most. I've got a lot of questions about that, but I haven't really dug into it, and I haven't called anybody on it yet. But also, I don't really care that much. I'm not a pocket watcher. I don't care what these guys make. As long as Texas isn't losing good football players, nobody should care.
Oh, Eric, you have not been on Twitter. Everyone cares, dude. Texas is buying their championship, Eric.
See, that never bothered me. When the 49ers bought Deion Sanders before they won the Super Bowl in 1995, what was I, 16 years old? I did not give a damn. Buy a Super Bowl. That flag flies forever. And then, went around to the Cowboys right after that, so I felt the pain on the other side. But yeah,
I'm an Astros fan.
Yeah.
I'm an Astros fan, so I don't care. Do what you got to do.
You banged the drum for it.
Exactly.
Astros fans are so Machiavellian. Whatever you got to do, baby, get that ring. All right, before we keep going, though, let's hear from Luxe.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
Thank you, LC. Our friend LC is trapped in Europe because the power went out, and apparently it screwed up all the flights throughout the whole EU. All right, another big takeaway, special teams. Special teams performed kind of across the board down last year. It wasn't just the kicking and punting game. Everything was kind of wonky. The coaches identified that, stated that a couple of times, and then took steps to fix that. Bringing in some new guys as well. So, Eric, what's the latest on the special teams upgrades?
Well, I thought for a large part of last year, people were using Auburn's struggles, field goal kicking, to kind of color the entire special teams unit as struggling. And after, not long after I made that statement, I think all hell started breaking loose on fakes and stuff like that. And Texas did have trouble creating big plays. For reasons we've gone into before, they had to take Wisner off. Wisner was supposed to assume Keelan Robinson's role, and they couldn't because he became too important as the only true running back. They had to take Taff off because he was too important to safety. This year, I think there's a lot more experience in that regard. Warren Roberson had his issues. We don't expect to see that again. New kicker, new punter. They've always had the resolve to be good on it. They give a lot of deference to the third phase. That's why, Jeff Banks doesn't make all that money because he coaches tight ends. And so I think it's going to be an obvious bounce back season as long as the kicker is mostly good and the punter is mostly good. Everything else will take care of itself. We'll see more playmaking, more blocks, and Niblett will probably return one or two.
Evan, how you feeling?
I love seeing the Ryan Niblett news. I mean, that's the spot for him, is to be a special teams ace. He's got the speed. He's got the work ethic. I mean, he's played 4 different positions. Not exactly 4, but he's been all over the team's field, and he just wants to get snaps on. It's obviously he's a hard worker. He cares about the Longhorns, but him being the punt returner excites me a lot. There's always been the talk about if it's not Bond, the fastest guy on the team last year was Niblett or Bolden, one of those two. And we saw Bolden finally crack one at the end of the year, but most of his returns, I felt like they were just like this close. As my voice chokes up, just this close from being taken back, being a big kick return. And I'd love to see. There's nothing more I love than a punt or a kick return in football. So that's my favorite play. And also, like Eric said, it just feels like you're getting a year older and a year more experience on players like Roberson. The young guys are also getting in, the guys who redshirted. So I'm looking forward to seeing a better unit. It was pretty flat out bad in the last 5 games of the year, and it cost them a lot at times. So it's going to be another thing that keeps Texas a little bit closer to the national championship.
Yeah, and punt block's a big thing for me. I'm a big punt block guy. So I want to see a lot of that. And then Drew mentioned earlier, getting gunners in there, the holistic special teams. And also our kick coverage, not last year, but the year before, we had this really great way of kicking it onto the 5 and tackling them immediately. So we were negating these touchback gains. We weren't kicking it through. It's like, I loved that part 2 years ago. If we can recreate something like that, man, that's a hidden 10 yards or whatever. And it matters, man, when you're backed up. Drew, how do you give us your expertise on the kicking game, dude?
It's funny. I feel like this was our first year where we regressed from a special teams standpoint. Every year we've been able to find capable gunners. We weren't getting as many penalties. I mean, even when you get penalties on special teams like those that's field position you're giving up, whether you're missing a block punt or running into the kicker. But I do think you're going to have years like this. I think it was the perfect storm for us to come into this year just making some assumptions that we'd be just fine on special teams. We had our kicker coming back. We had it all lined up, right? That's where I think we missed the mark. We regressed. But when you're having a new quarterback, with all the changes coming up this year, I think the regression that we experienced last year, all it's going to do is we're tightening down this year. Everybody's going to be on top of it all because you just can't have a year like last year and then circle back and experience the same thing. So I wouldn't want to repeat some of the things we experienced last year, but I do think regardless, you get what you emphasize. Sark always says that. Mm-hmm. It's going to give us an edge going into this season. And we're going to make sure special teams is a phase of the game that impacts the game and not just something that we just go through the motions on.
Well, there's been a lot of introspection in the building. So, you get what you emphasize. They've been emphasizing that a lot. And, we've heard that if it's Georgia, Michael Taff is just going to play every special team that they need. Trey Weiser is going to play every special team that they need. They're not going to hold back. At the same time, they feel like team speed, aggression, experience is at a place where special teams should be elite this year. I feel good about it. To me, it's one of the easiest bets on the team next season outside of, Arch being good is that special teams is going to bounce back in a major way.
I know this is weird, Eric, to jump in, but this is the kind of stuff that gets like my blood pumping because the two guys you named, Trey Wisner and Michael Taff, why are those two guys the guys you want to make sure are playing special teams against Georgia? It's not because of what's in here.
Yeah.
We're sitting here trying to replace Trey Wisner every second we get a chance at running back. We've been trying to replace Michael Taft every season, every offseason. Can't do it. And these are the guys you want when you want out there day one on special teams.
Yep.
What it takes to play that position, the mentality it takes, the heart it takes, the commitment it takes, you naming those two guys, that's the kind of stuff that makes the difference. So it is good to hear. Like, we know we're not settling there. We're not just filling in the blank. We're not just going to play a young guy because we want to get him some experience. We're going out there to play guys who have the heart, who are going to win, who are going to show what it looks like to do it really well. And Trey Wisner and Michael Taft are those two guys for sure.
I don't know can you even get a more fired up Jeff Banks? Like, I don't know if you can yell louder. So it's like, it'll be another technique. But for special teams, man, Jeff Banks I don't even know how you can increase the energy, but he's going to find a way to do it. The final takeaway, the trade surplus. Texas had some important positions we had to fill, or I was going to change the outlook of some other things, probably, cost us a win or two. But Texas was able to go and get those guys. So we all know kind of the main stuff here, but I did like that you said the injuries was a top 3 round NFL draft potential too. So Texas did their job, and it seemed like they got damn near every defensive tackle that even came in the portal.
Yeah, that was insane. This goes back to spring ball, though. So we knew the needs going into spring before it even started, but then they became even more profound with, we didn't really hear about the D tackles balling out until later in spring. You had the injury to Jordan Washington early in spring that kept him out. It's minor, but still his absence was pretty big. The injuries at wide receiver made that need even more profound. So spring ball, he highlighted what was needed, and then the staff went out and got it to the best of their ability. I took out a part about I thought better of it, but I took out the 2 names on the wide receivers. I heard that they didn't get so and so, but they still got an A. There's going to be time for that. I didn't feel like firing up the internet, but I think that they got an A on that. The needs were obvious throughout spring. Their needs were obvious before spring. And they got it done. You got to love how proactive the staff is. They see an issue, and they do everything they can to address it immediately.
Evan, who's your favorite grab?
I liked injuries. I think that was such a big need. And Eric, I think the only reason that people were not giving it an A in our poll was because you kept teasing that 3rd round receiver. But otherwise, how can it not be an A?
But you can go to A. You can go to A plus. That's where it would have been an A plus if they would have got one.
Yeah, exactly. You get that 99 out of 100. Unless you're getting the number 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5 guy, no one's going to be happy. So, but I like injuries. Like, I wrote an article about this, but PFF releases these way too early big boards, and they had him as their number 2 tight end behind Stowers at Vanderbilt, which is pretty crazy that Texas just got the 2nd best as of now draft prospect at tight end from the portal, seemingly pretty quickly. It got done within a week. He got to Austin and signed up, and it's just going to make the offense so much more dynamic. We'd always talked about how Arch is going to need someone to be a safety blanket, your 3rd and 7 guy. It sounds like Amari Winston can be that. Maybe not this year, and it was the problem. So, yeah, I'm really excited for what Andrews can do. I think he's so good on those slip routes and just finding the little pieces of space that defenders just aren't really occupying, and he's going to be such an important part of this team.
He's pretty explosive in the open field. I saw a couple of clips of him running full. Once he gets up to full speed, he's fast. I don't think he's better than the guy Ohio State got from Purdue that Texas went after in the first winter portal. And Stowers is kind of a different athlete as a receiver. That kid high jumped 7 feet in high school, which is unheard of, especially for a future tight end. Yeah. But I love that pickup for Andrews because, they're not going to depend on him to be wide receiver 1 as a receiving threat. At least they don't have to, because they do have Jordan Washington, who probably has more upside as a receiving threat than Andrews does. But now there's not just depth; they increase the ceiling and they raise the floor at the same time. Tremendous get.
Well, and the thing with Mosley too, it's like, there's the theoretical 3rd rounder, but I think the fans are going to fall in love with Mosley throughout the season. I mean, his reliability is important. He's going to be the guy that he's going to gain your respect because he's going to get that big 3rd down. So it's that kind of player too, and he's going to have competition. But I don't want to shortchange Mosley too much.
If they put him at slot, DeAndre Moore can easily have the type of season that I was looking at from one of those other 2 receivers. If he goes outside and he catches, obviously, he's got to become a little more reliable. But DeAndre Moore can easily explode next year and be gone. In fact, I would predict that DeAndre Moore, this will be his last year at Texas, pretty much, unless the hands just don't come through.
Drew, you're muted. You're muted.
Another one, Drew.
I'm sorry. I think DeAndre Moore is the Rockets were on in the background, so I had to. Anyway, I think DeAndre Moore is one of those people who it's if you aren't maxing out to the extent to where you are able and having a season to go to the league, then you're just out anyway. You know, I mean, we've seen that happen a few times where it's if you're not elevating us, if you're not a guy that we're willing to compete with the next year, will they welcome him back? Yes, but there's no reason he shouldn't be able to maximize this year. That's really on him. Hopefully, he maximizes this year, gets the most out of this offense, gets the most out of this season. Arch is expecting it. Arch is hoping for it. All these guys need him to step up. So, he stands out in that way. But as far as the portal goes in general, I appreciate what we're doing along the defensive line. We found a formula that works. You know, it's a position that requires us to rotate and have fresh bodies anyway. But you're taking guys with experience, with different traits. You're putting them in the pit and say, hey, go battle out for these reps. You know, go earn them. We have some guys on campus, and now we're bringing y'all in. Go earn them. And then you get to earn them. You get to make plays in the SEC. You get to make plays at Texas with the Texas brand on your chest. You get developed here. Just what we're doing at defensive tackle, it creates an opportunity for guys to come in and really compete. And it creates an opportunity for us to be able to maximize that position while our depth and talent that we recruit continues to develop. So got to appreciate that haul. That stands out to me a lot from this spring.
Yeah, that's what I was excited about too. Let the Sharmas of the world cook a little while with these older guys. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, kind of leading into what or playing off of what Drew said, it's going to be the most competitive August that I think I've ever covered, just because so many guys were getting ready they expect to play. And then more guys come in to compete that are going to have to play. You know, you don't bring in portal guys to sit. So it's going to be competition, cornerbacks, extreme competition, despite no portal guy being added. Kobe Black doesn't want to sit. Jalen Gilbo doesn't want to go back to nickel. You know, Alex January, he definitely wants to play. Those freshmen, highly rated freshman receivers, they want to play, even though it's tough to get in the rotation at Texas, especially when you're young. Competition everywhere. Can't wait.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun, man. And like I said, a lot of this competition here too is like very telling for next year. We're gonna have a lot of young, talented athletes. Drew, thanks.
I'm anxious to see kind of piggybacking off of Eric. I'm anxious to see when August comes around. You know, there's a lot of silence that goes on between now and camp, right? Their guys going to be working, guys developing. But I want to see from a strategic standpoint how when does Sark start to – is he going to let these guys just battle it out? We play Ohio State August 30th, right? At some point, you're going to have to decide who are the guys that have already stood out, that have done the things in the offseason to show that they're prepared and they're doing all the right things. There's a lot of factors that are going to come into play between now and August 30th on really who goes out there and starts that first day from some of these position battles. But I'm anxious to see when we do get to camp, when do those things kind of iron themselves out and we really start dialing into who we're going to roll with in the August 30th. Because make no mistake, that's a game we plan to go into Columbus and we plan to win. So we're not going to play around on that. I expect us to see, how that all, these competitions, how they unfold both this summer. And you can catch that coverage at Inside Texas. And then as we go into August, we'll see how it all plays out.
We don't take breaks at Inside Texas. There's going to be team coverage every single week. They compete year round throughout the offseason, and we're going to have that workout coverage, the latest on the team. It doesn't stop just because the team isn't putting on pads.
Absolutely. Well, y'all did the outros for me. Great job, guys. All right, y'all have a great night. Chat, thank y'all, and later.